The Blue Jewel.
Chapter 7. Part 10. It was already dusk when they returned to the inn. They found the mercenaries having dinner. Apparently the meeting with the Council of Mags was quite productive. Gosberg was glad to see them and received them very effusively. "Dear, come and have dinner with us, we are happy. Today we will work. It will be an easy and well-paid assignment." Kush looked at the Denka with some reproach. He certainly wasn't being very discreet about what suited them. Tripulia was not a safe place, full of scoundrels everywhere. The Denka ignored the magician's disapproving glances and continued. "If you want, I think you can join us, you will find it very interesting." This really stunned all the mercenaries. It was absolute madness. "Will you come, my dear?" The Denka insisted again. "I don't think it's convenient. I think Aris and Kush don't like the idea." Arian had no desire to live new experiences. That night he had enough with the disappointment of his brother's meeting. "I don't think Aris bothers you about your company, why not, boss?" The half-orc looked with some disdain at the Denka. It was evident that it was an awkward situation, but what Arian did not know was that the superior of Aris was Gosberg since he was the oldest member. He could not contradict an order from the Denka, but both Arian and the Kendali were inexperienced in combat, although the mission was very simple and not dangerous. "If you want, but you'll take care of his safety. If anything happens, you'll be accountable to Debok." Arian was surprised. She didn't want to go, but now that she had been invited she couldn't refuse. "Don't worry, Aris, everything will go on normally. Besides, Agnorak can help me." The other half-orc raised his head. Gosberg is always tangling things up. He was nonsense. "I hope so." Aris was terse with the answer. Silence reigned at the table. It was a real surprise that the girls accompanied them, but no one wanted to say anything. Kush spent a long time watching the Denka. That he was up to something was obvious, but it was impossible to uncover a plan by Gosberg. You'd have to do what you'd always do, go with the flow and see what happened. Arian didn't look up during the whole dinner either. He didn't want to observe the gazes of the mercenaries, although as the minutes went by the situation returned to a certain normality. At the end of dinner, Aris and Kush talked to the young woman and the Kendali about how they should behave. The first to speak was the magician. "You must stay calm, the work is simple. In a nearby alley the Council of Magicians knows that the sale of a magical object of great value is going to take place. We were lucky enough to arrive in Tripulia yesterday to tell the truth. The Council does not want that magical object to fall into dangerous hands but does not want to be directly involved in the event. Don't worry, they have informed us who wants to make the exchange and they are no match for us. You just have to be in the rear, and if the situation gets complicated, always stay by Gosberg and Agnorak's side, heeding their instructions. Gosberg is a life insurance policy in these cases, don't part with it." They waited until midnight before leaving. Everything had come together. It was fortunate that they arrived just in time for the exchange without a doubt. Although something smelled strange to Kush. If it was something so easy, why hire some mercenaries when the council had enough resources to at least kill some half-scoundrels? Something wasn't right. The alley was also not far from the inn where they were staying. As always, the streets were overflowing. They were placed at their posts. The order was not to attack until the exchange was complete. Arian, Vanis and Gosberg took a position closer to the exit of the alley. In case there was trouble, the escape was easier. The meeting point was the inn. Agnorak was next to Sabu in the main street. They covered the rear in case it was a trap. Simple missions always brought surprises. Arian was covered by large boxes, the drawback being that he only had a partial view of the alley. Time passed slowly and it did not seem that the information of the magicians was going to be fulfilled. Many times there are murmurs and those involved cancel the exchange. Gosberg seemed impatient enough and was about to give up when they heard footsteps coming into the alley. Arian couldn't see who came in. Since he was talking to the Kendali at the time, Gosberg reproached them for their carelessness. "Please. Silence." I don't want Aris to gruel Denka meat. Again time passed slowly. The alley was plunged into an unearthly silence from the outside. The hustle and bustle of the street arrived. The silence was interrupted by the nervous footsteps of the person who had just entered. It seemed that they were delaying their appointment. After a few minutes, they heard other footsteps entering the alley. This time Arian could see well who entered. He could not believe it. It was a couple, a thin man dressed in black and a magician in white robes, Darius. A bad hunch was beginning to emerge like a black shadow within him. It's about time. It's not a very comfortable place. A voice familiar to Arian complained, though she wasn't entirely sure. Don't worry, my friend, everything is taken care of. It's a safe place and soon you'll see so much gold that you won't go back to a place like that for the rest of your life. I hope so. Gold? It was Nilam. Impossible, his brother would never lie to him. The jewel. Here it is. What about the gold? We have 2 partners outside with the chest. They will enter when you show us the jewel. Nilam was nervous. He didn't like how this was getting. The chest wasn't there. Now he had no choice. All or nothing. He slipped the bag from his pants pocket and then placed the jewel on his hand. It did something strange. It shone more intensely than it normally did. To his surprise, it also burned him a little. Arian, recognizing his brother, came out of his hiding place and could see the scene, the trio contemplating how the jewel sparkled. Give us the jewel now, the man ordered. Nilam thought to say something but Darius sang aloud some verses and a green lightning bolt hit the young man's chest causing him to fall to the ground. The jewel as it fell to the ground was losing its bluish shine. Arian's brother convulsed loudly as Darius made her way toward the jewel. Nilam! Arian shouted lamentingly. Darius turned. It was as if he saw a ghost. The other man drew his sword and began to mumble something. You? How did you get there? Darius spoke no more, as a dagger pierced his forehead and he died instantly. Arian was perplexed. She had never seen anything so fast. It was Gosberg who was next to her. The other man tried to reach the jewel. It was useless. A lightning bolt launched by Kush stopped him. But the man must have known the use of magic since with a kind of red ribbon he managed to contain the lightning. Although he could not react to Aris' greatsword, an elegant and simple blow, the edge of the sword entered the right side upwards penetrating to the heart. Death was instantaneous. Agnorak and Sabu, seeing lightning, entered the alley, running towards Arian to protect her, but the young woman cared little. As soon as Darius had passed away, she went to comfort her brother who lay dead with his eyes rolling. The mercenaries dispersed looking for more of the dead's cronies, but it seemed that only the couple was involved in this exchange. Kush examined Nilam's corpse, then rose to speak to Aris, Gosberg, and Agnorak. A death ray. He has undone it inside. It takes about 6 minutes to perform the entire conjuration. They planned to kill him from the beginning. It is a typical incantation of white robes. Arian kept crying, comforted by the Kendeli. She would never forgive herself for this failure. Nilam was a fool, but she should never have left him alone. If she had been with him now her brother would be alive. Aris and Agnorak were looking at the other man's corpse, and were joined by Kush. I know this guy. Gosberg walked over to the trio and looked at Kush. 5 years ago in this same city I saw how he murdered a prostitute. I managed to wound him, but he escaped. He is a black man. From the little I could find out he was dedicated to supplying anything that necromancers need. The Denkga examined the corpse. Well-fed, new clothes, it must be a profitable business and the clientele must be very powerful. Agnorak examined the sword. It was of good workmanship, no trinket. What's a guy mixed with necromancy doing next to a white robe? Aris was silent. He took the blue jewel, which began to shine again. It was the object they had to recover. It must be something very important. Kush shook his head. That's why they hired us. A white robe next to a black magin is such a scandal that not even the Council of Mags itself will be able to cover it this time. Black magic is within the most important order of mercenaries. The quartet watched as Arian wept over his brother's corpse. One more surprise, what a Gosberg occurrence. The Denka lit a cigarette but said nothing. Agnorak spoke. The Kendali says he is her brother. Arian was traveling to Tripulia to visit him. Too many coincidences. Aris was surprised. Kush examined the magician's robe to see if he could find anything that would shed more light on the matter, but nothing. Agnorak was then that he remembered that he had seen this guy in Tame. This wizard was chasing Arian in Tame. It was shortly after meeting her that she managed to escape from him. Everyone fell silent. Aris spoke. Arian came to warn his brother. The Council of Mags had not been very clear with them either. They told them about the exchange between 3 people and that they should prevent it with the means they deemed appropriate and recover the object. They didn't tell them anything about a white robe and a black Magin. This is all very strange. The Council of Magicians owes us an explanation. Kush sat up. Doris had nothing of value. I don't think the Wizard Council will give you explanations. They will surely cover everything up and keep the item. Well, I think they're going to have to do it this time. Agnorak kicked the ground as he approached the young woman to comfort her. Kush went to find some wagons so that they could take the corpses and leave them in the Temple of Thani. They would only take care of Arian's brother. Aris and Gosberg were left alone. Gosberg spoke too calmly, as he lit another cigarette. Arian's brother is dead. There is an order of necromancers operating in Tripulia with impunity, surely with some dark objective, and the Council of Mags is going to refuse to collaborate with us. First we must bury Arian's brother, and then... Gosberg was draining his cigarette. Aris had to consult the Denka. We will ask the magicians for explanations if they want the jewel. Aris remained silent. That was breaking the contract. De Boek won't like it, but Gosberg was the superior in command. And if they force us to hand it over the hard way? Gosberg smiled slightly and just one sentence full of confidence. There is no spell faster than a dagger. The conversation ended, as a wagon commanded by Kush took the bodies to the Temple of Thani. The rest of the mercenaries accompanied a disconsolate Arian to the inn where she wept for her unfortunate brother until dawn.